So, welcome everyone. Today's webinar is Race, Gender, and Inequity in Nonprofit Consulting. This is a topic that we haven't had before, and so it'll be really interesting to have that conversation. My name is Yvonne Sims. I'm Educational Programming Manager based out of Atlanta, and we have Carla Norris on the phone as well, or on the webinar as well. She's Equitable Access something really long, education associate, and she's sitting in Brooklyn, New York. And you'll see her kind of answering questions until I let her go a little later, but we're both helping in the background for today's webinar. If you don't know Candid already, then you should know that we are the coming together of GuideStar and Foundation Center. Every year, millions of nonprofits spend trillions of dollars, and Candid finds out where that money goes, where it's coming from, all of that data that's really important for the nonprofit sector to do their work well. We also partner with the community through many libraries and nonprofit resource centers to give trainings and other resources and databases for free to nonprofit leaders who need the kind of access to those tools. And now I'm actually going to turn it over for our speakers today. Crystal Cherry, who's an executive consultant at the Board Pro, is going to be doing a lot of what I normally do and kind of moderating our panelists. We have Lauren Elise Tudor with us, we have Wanda Scott, and we have Carla Lavender. So I'm gonna let them take over and stop my share, and we will get started.
Thank you, Yvonne. And while Lauren pulls up our PowerPoint, I just want to say welcome to everyone. And I want to thank Yvonne for inviting us to come. I pitched this idea to her after sharing some more information about our network, Fabulous Female Fundraisers. We're a network of Black women and women of color fundraisers. Started here in Atlanta, but now we've grown to 24 states and in Canada. And among our network, we have about 15 consultants. And so we get together quarterly to support one another, to share resources, to lift one another up. And so I was telling Yvonne about our network and the consultant piece of it. And we wanted to share that we often talk about some of the inequities that we experience, like we did as fundraisers, but now as consultants. And she agreed to allow us to come on. So thank you, Yvonne, for trusting me on this one. I'm glad to be back with Candid. I'm glad to have my F3 sisters in the house with me. I'm glad that I see a lot of folks from New York. Hail to New York, because I'm a native New Yorker. So my folks from Brooklyn, what's up? I saw my friend Shakana Haley's in the group. So thank you, Shakana, for being here. So let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to introduce my panel. So today's conversation is going to be about race, gender, and equity in the nonprofit consulting sector. Let's move forward, Lauren. As Yvonne mentioned, in my day job, I'm a board consultant. The name of my firm is the Board Pro. Started my firm, I guess, about 4 years ago after I stepped out of fundraising officially. So I'm a recovering fundraiser now turned board consultant, and I absolutely love the space that I'm in. And I'm also the founder of F3, Fabulous Female Fundraisers, and the chair of the board of directors. So I carry several roles, but today I'm here as the founder and chair of the board of F3. So let me bring y'all in on who I have in the room with me, my wonderful sisters. Let's move forward. Well, let me first tell you about F3. So F3, Fabulous Female Fundraisers, was founded, I guess, in 2019, and it was formed organically. This was not something that was planned. It was a group of women who, all of us lived here in Atlanta. We were all fundraisers at that time, working 9-to-5 jobs. And I contacted one of my girlfriends on a day that I wanted to blow up a building. Y'all know what I'm talking about, a day that you feel like you're going to kill a bee. And I called her and said, let's go have drinks because I'm about to blow this building up. And we started talking about what was going on in our jobs and our fields. And it just felt so good to have that brick taken off my neck. And I said to her, we got to do this more often so we don't kill people. And she said, absolutely. So we started inviting people to come. The next year later, we had like 25 sisters who were meeting periodically for lunch. And it was wonderful. And we were just kicking it. And then COVID happened and we started meeting online, virtually. And then, I don't know, somehow we got into Zoom spaces where all the Black women were talking about fundraising. And the next thing I know, we had some inquiries from people living in Connecticut and DC and California saying, I'm the only Black woman, I'm the only one on my team who's a person of color. I can't stand my supervisor. I hate fundraising, but I love it. You know, all the stuff that we have been talking about. And we would love to be part of your network. So the group has kind of grown organically into a thing. And here we are 4 years later, we are now a nonprofit. I'm very happy to say we have a board of directors, we have a budget, we have sponsors. It has just organically morphed into what it is. And so part of what we do is support one another. And like, as I mentioned, a third of us are consultants. So I just wanted to give you all some history on how F3 came about. It was not a planned thing. It just kind of morphed into what it morphed into. And we are a wonderful network of support for one another, not only professionally, but personally, because when we were all going through COVID, all of us were losing jobs, we were losing family members, and it was an opportunity for us to just love up one another and support one another during those tough times. So I just want to share the background on who F3 is. And now I'm going to talk to you all about the wonderful sisters I have here with me. So I have my girl, Carla, who has talked me off a ledge, I don't know, 8,000 times. She's my sounding board. Whenever I come up with a crazy idea, she's like, no, we're not going to do that.
I say yes sometimes.
Sometimes, but she's my voice of reason. So I love Carla. She's just a wonderful sister. Also with us is Lauren Tudor. She's an entrepreneur. She is about it. She just did a fabulous presentation in Toronto at the AFP Icon conference. They still talking about that a whole month later, Lauren. So good to have you here. And then Wanda is my nomad consultant. Wanda quit her job, decided she was going to become a consultant, and then travel the daggone world. So for the last 3 years, you don't know where Wanda's going to be. She might be in Paris. She might be in Africa. She might be in Ghana. She's sending us pictures in front of the Eiffel Tower. Girl, we hating up on our Wanda because we're like, we so wish we could be where you are, Wanda. But Wanda is wonderful. She's a major gifts guru and has her own consulting firm. So y'all are in for a real treat. We got some sisters, some powerhouse sisters here today, and we are going to go through a series of questions that we've come up with that will hopefully help you to understand what our experiences have been like as fundraisers and now as consultants. And so please feel to drop your questions in the chat and we'll try to get to them as much as we can. So let's go ahead and let's get popping. So my first question is about consulting readiness. And I'm going to throw this question out to Wanda. How did you know when you were ready to work for yourself? What did you do to get ready? Did you have to make lots of changes in your life? And what is the first thing you did to launch your business? So that's a mouthful, Wanda. And so if you could just kind of share as you will on any of those questions.
Yeah, thanks. And hello to everyone, and especially to my home state, Ohio. So I knew I was ready to work for myself for a couple of reasons. One is I had always thought when I turned 50 or get into my 50s, that consultant would be kind of the end of my career, the thing that I would do to kind of wrap up my career. And so I was approaching that. And then I think even more importantly, I had honestly been in back-to-back really toxic work environments. It had impacted my health, it impacted my relationships, my mental health. And I was really, really at a breaking point. And I just decided to take a chance on myself. It was during COVID, and I think all of us were really kind of reorienting our lives and our perspectives about what we do with our lives, where our time is. And so that's kind of what got me ready. I was almost like an intersection of a lot of different things that came together to make that happen. I didn't necessarily have to make changes in my lifestyle. Part of that is because it was COVID. So we were inside, we weren't able to do as much as you normally do. So that's what I mean. It's kind of like a combination of all these different things working together. But some of the first things I did, though, to launch my business is, one, I talked to some women I knew who were consultants and who had been doing it for a long time, because I really needed to hear from them that they thought I could do it too. I mean, it's a big risk to do this. So that was the first thing I did and got a lot of good advice. And then I did some research with the Small Business Association, with the state. I've been currently in California. I lived at the time in the city of Richmond. And so I just did research to figure out what licenses I needed, what insurances were required of me. And I did all of that in secret. I didn't tell many people I was doing it. So I did my research and I got a chance to kind of get secure enough to be able to launch the business. And then I moved forward with, I have a lot of marketing friends and great writers. And so we pulled together my website and then I launched my website as kind of the initial thing. But I did not have kind of a book of business. I just kind of took a chance on myself, which is a really, really high risk. And I've just been really, really blessed to be able to continue to build a business.
And tell us how you've been doing that, traveling the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So because the business started during COVID, I was remote. And so when people began to return to the office, I just remained remote. And I had a moment and I said, why are you sitting in your house when you could be traveling the world and working from a laptop? And so I've done a lot of things around shoring up. I mean, there's things you can do around your mailbox, how you accept payments from clients. All of that stuff can be done virtually. We're just really, really lucky now to be able to do that. And then I would meet clients and clients would really be excited that I was traveling. And so they wouldn't ask me to come into the office. So it just all worked out to me, but it's been wonderful to be able to work, to continue to do the thing that I really get a lot of fulfillment out of, and then also be able to see the world and go to places that I just never thought I'd be able to see.
Wanda, what's been your favorite location so far?
People always ask this. This is a hard question because it depends. If you're talking shopping, that's one place. I will say Spain and London have some of the best shopping I've ever seen in my life. But in terms of adventure, I will say Costa Rica and Peru, which I was just in Peru and I did Machu Picchu. Those are some really, really beautiful, beautiful places. And I'm a big outdoors person. I think in terms of ocean, it would be the coastline of Italy, but in the Mediterranean. Yeah, so it doesn't give you my most favorite, but those are kind of the ones that were dear to me.
Wanda's a bad bee, y'all. I'm just saying. She managed to work out this consulting thing and travel the world. I am so jealous. Lauren, hey girl, tell us how you got into consulting.
Yeah, I'm with Wanda. I'm definitely loving how much travel we get to do and being a consultant. My journey to consulting actually happened almost by accident and out of emergency, quite frankly. I spent many years within nonprofit ecosystems. I had worked a number of years at a community foundation and a lot of small social justice organizations, and very similar to Wanda, in the pandemic, I made some different choices, and I could either do what I've always done or I could strike it out on my own. And I chose to hang my shingle and let God take the rest. And it has been beautiful. So Architect was born out of that type of scenario, and it is it's 4 years old now. And I say that to say, like, I never saw myself as a business owner, but I had all the skills I needed to be a consultant, and I had all the relationships that I needed to really start it right. I think it was a huge testament of both faith, but also some sort of affirmation that came from being really good to people for such a long time. So like when I did go to hang my shingle and say Architect is here, I had my first anchor client in less than a week, and that took me by surprise. And then we've been able to grow and sophisticate our services and streamline our processes and build standard operating procedures. And now I'm like, oh, the flexibility and the freedom that comes from being a person who can determine their own destiny, but still do really good work.
Yes.
And do it for the nonprofits that deserve it. I am so blessed to be able to be in that type of position and work now with this bench of other incredible women of color and Black women specifically who see the same vision, who also go after what they want and are really making the change that they want to see. So that is how I landed in consulting. And now that I'm here, I'm like, oh yeah, I would never give this up. I can't, I would never.
And
but
Lauren, you have scaled now. So you have staff that actually work for you. So I want to hear about that. When did you decide it was time to do that?
You know, it happened organically for me. People kind of keep coming to me and they say, I really like what you're doing. how can I be involved in that? And it forced me to build out a system and a process. And so I really look for individuals who are passionate about community, who really care about bringing things together, who realize that a lot of the solutions are right there and they're just really walking alongside that small to mid-sized nonprofit to like coach them to success. And a fair amount of trust. You can't just like, I personally just don't go out advertising, but when people say that they are interested in working with Architect, we definitely put them on a trial. I look for people who can hunt for business. I look for people who can execute on that client. And it's forced me to think broader, just as a bit as a bit expanding my business acumen. And what do equitable revenue splits look like? If I did this for myself and I get to now walk away with a larger portion of revenue, profit, all of those things, what might it look like to share those earnings with my contracted consultants? And so we have a really, I think, awesome revenue split model that if they hunt for the business, then they get the lion's share of the profit.
That's wonderful. Carla, so I think you might be the only one amongst us who actually works for a consulting firm. Tell us how that has been for you.
Yeah, so I decided to jump into consulting, after working 30 plus years, both with nonprofits, helping them with their annual fund campaigns and their capital campaigns, and also in higher education, doing major gift philanthropy for the most part. But I felt put in a box, honestly, could not move to that next level. And I do believe that race had a lot to do with it. It's like, so what type of portfolio you were being given, and what you were allowed to do. So I wish I had started 10 years earlier, but, having the security of a job and a paycheck kind of had me on hold. But when I finally made the decision to do it, I did it just like Wanda, talked to people who were already doing consulting and just got the confirmation that I knew what I knew, that I was generating results, because there's no question there. I always met goal or exceeded goals, or built really strong relationships. So it just needed to have just people around me encouraging me. And so I decided to make the leap. And I started as an independent. So I formed Lavender Consulting Group, made it an LLC, and just went out there, started networking, got my first anchor client, worked with a lot of smaller organizations. But the entire time, I was constantly networking, showing up in those venues where I knew nonprofit leaders would be, where donors would be, having phone calls with those people who I had supported in the past to let them know what I was doing. And so while I was on one of those networking calls, a consulting firm, Columns Fundraising here in Atlanta, they sought me out. So after that call, I got a phone call from one of the partners, talked to me about what I was doing, and invited me to join in on the firm. And Columns Fundraising is predominantly a white male driven firm. And at that point, they were struggling to attract clients that were led by people of color, serving people of color. So they invited me into the firm. And it has been a great experience, because what it has allowed me to do is really to compete and land larger clients that have a budget to pay a professional consultant. So I've been doing that now for about 3 years, and it's just been wonderful. I bring business to the table. We are able to collaborate, work together. So I don't feel like I'm out here by myself. I have access to, like, if I needed a plan giving professional, so I have that. I have a grant writer. So it's just having that network of people to work with, but still very much feeling independent and like I'm running my own business. So it's been wonderful.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. And I will share that for me, I just knew that I couldn't continue doing what I was doing, and I had to have the faith and confidence in myself that I knew what I knew, right? So we weren't going to be dealing with no imposter syndrome. I knew what I knew. I had to look myself in the mirror and say, you know, you're a bad bee. You know what you know. You're going to take this thing and you're going to run with it. And my sister asked me when I told her I was going to step out on my own, she asked me, how much are you willing to pay for this? And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, there's a cost to every decision. So how bad do you really want this? Because being a consultant means there'll be some lean days and there'll be some fat days. And on those lean days, how are you going to get by and what are you willing to do? Because, you know, you're always thinking, oh my God, I got to get a job. I got to get that paycheck. And I just decided that I was going to lean in and I was going to do whatever I had to do to make it so that I didn't have to work for somebody else's job. And there were some tough times. I have a son. I'm a single mom. I'm the only source of income. And during those lean, some crazy things, I drove Uber, right? I drove DoorDash. You know, I did what I had to do in order for me to make the bills work while I was growing my business. And it was crazy because I have 2 college degrees and, you know, 25 years experience. And my mother was like, okay, so what? And I was like, Mom, look, this is what I got to do. And I did it. And like I said, I had to cut off, you know, XM radio in my car, and I had to cut off the gym membership, and I had to cut out some things, but it was worth the sacrifice for me. So at some point, you know, when you're ready, you know, when you're ready to make the sacrifices that you need to make in order for you to make this thing work. And if you have to take on a part-time gig or do something else, that's fine. You have to do what's right for you and what's right for your gut. So I just wanted to share that. I did come up with a quasi business plan. I threw up a website and I just went for it. And so over the years, I have put some more infrastructure into my business. Of course, I have a bank account and EIN number and all those things, but I didn't initially. Initially, I was just like, I just got to do something else and I'm going to go for it. So, all right, let's move forward. All right, values. Lauren, how did your values affect the firm, the kind of firm that you opened, and like what niche you decided you were going to be in? How important was that for you?
Oh, super important, super important. So, I mean, I have a very succinct but specific set of personal values, and we infuse a lot of that into Architect Philanthropic Collective. I very much value kindness, top notch. Like, let's just be nice to each other. Or at least kind to each other. I very much value authenticity. We show up as we are, who we are for the clients that we're serving, because we don't need to put on airs to do really good business. I also value community. I value that people who are closest to the problem often have the solutions to fix it. And I value patience as we figure out how to do that. And with patience comes benevolence. It means being fair and ethical and having a sense of purpose that is greater than ourselves. So those are the top 5 core values that we incorporate into our work. And it really helped shape the types of clients that we wanted to work with. So we're really specific. We work with small to mid-sized nonprofits who are generally, balloons, okay, who are generally less than 8-member staff, who may have 3 to 5 million in their operating budget, but just don't have the focus and capacity to fundraise. And so we will walk alongside you and help you build out your fundraising ecosystem and infrastructure. And we're coaches, really. We are people who show up with help you think through a problem and a strategy, and will help you implement it. And a lot of consultants, I know they don't do that, but I think that that's our value add and our value proposition. So we really lean into that specific market because it's very important. Otherwise, these people are left helpless. And when they come to a community foundation or a funder, and when they come to a funder, they're ill prepared unless they work with us when we can get them more prepared for the types of things that they're going after.
Wanda, there are 1,000,001 fundraising consultants out there, right? How did you decide what your niche was going to be? What was the thing that was going to make you special?
Yeah, I just focused on the thing that I enjoyed doing. You know, with all of your tasks as being like head of the department of development for several organizations and having worked for over 20 years, I was like, what do I really like to do? because so much of the job is stuff you have to do. And when I realized I love talking to people, I love seeing people eyes light up or just be inspired by the work an organization does. And I like to do that and see results. And so major giving was just a natural kind of inclination for me, even though I've done other things. When you start your business, you do, I wasn't as focused as everybody else. I was just like, I'm going to get out here and I have a ton of skills. I knew I didn't want to be an event planner, so I steered away from that. But everything else, it's kind of how I did it. And then as it evolved, now I really see value in doing interim work. I do a lot of interim work now. And strategic plans as well. And so that's kind of how I thought about doing the work. But at times I've had to do other things that were kind of outside of that niche. But now my organization focuses on fund development work for strategic planning, development assessment. So looking at your whole development operations, staffing, structure, approach to fundraising, and then the interim work is the areas I focus now. That's not where I started. But that's after 4 years now, that's kind of where I've landed. And it could be evolved from there. I think that's the beauty of having your own business, that you can make it be whatever you want it to be. And you don't have to follow any rules. Now I like structure, but I've kind of gone my own way most of my life. And so I think, for a person that is creative, because people they think a creative business has to be you have to create a product, right? Or something, marketing or something. But you can be creative with your business in so many ways. And I think that opens up a lot of opportunity for you to think outside of the box and how you can really create the life that you want. And for me, just really quickly, a value for me, I spent a lot of time on my values before I launched my business. I spent a lot of time thinking about what was important to me. And one of the things that I do say on my website is I talk about balance. I lived so much of probably half of my career being so imbalanced, being stressed out, high anxiety, not sleeping well. I don't know how I was able to hold all of that in my body and not get really ill. But that was just not going to be, if I was going to do this, if I was going to take the risk, it was going to be kind to me. And
Yes.
so, that was just a value that I try to keep in check. Because keeping balance in your life, you don't just set it and then it stays. You have to constantly be caring for it and checking in. And I think that's a big part of it. I am a woman that prays a lot. I meditate and center myself a lot. And that has been a good way for me to remind myself of my values and be driven by them instead of by money, which can easily happen in this kind of work. So.
I think being a consultant means you have to be closer to God or some kind of spiritual higher being, because you have to walk and operate on faith.
I don't know how anybody, when I first started, I talked to God. I said, God, if I'm going to do this, you're going to have to help me to really rely on you. Because I'm a control freak. I was like, and I don't have control over any of it. So I was like, God, you're going to have to help me. And he did. I mean, like, I've got now, I don't carry the angst that I did in that first year. Right?
Yeah.
I don't carry that angst. I'm just like, listen, the business will find me or I will find it. And if it's time for me to shift, I'll know in my heart and I'll make the shift. And I just have come to that resolve. And sometimes you're just like, okay, where's the business? But it always finds me. So that's an affirmation to me that I'm in the right place doing the right thing. And as long as I stay grounded in that and where I feel like I'm supposed to be, where God has me, I feel like everything will work itself out. And I have proof of that because I've been living for I've been living 52 years. So I have proof that if I just do the right thing, it's going to find me. And I think we have to tap back into that memory.
Yes.
Back into those stories. We have to tell ourselves stories. Fundraisers tell stories. But we have to tell ourselves our own story as a consultant, right? Like where we come from and how far and how things have worked out for us.
But there's so many conversations. This can go in so many different directions. This is so juicy. So the first thing I want to say is you really do have to believe in yourself and really figure out who you are and what things are important to you, what kind of clients you want to work with, what you're willing to accept and not accept, what your fee structure is going to be, whether or not you're only going to work with a certain kind of client. Are you going to be willing to negotiate your prices? You have to really figure out where you stand in this, right? Because you're going to be tested. And so you have to be resolute. And I remember in the beginning when I was always like, I got 30 days cash, right? Like I'm month to month on this thing, right? So I'm good for the next month, but after that, I don't know, we eating peanut butter and jelly after that, right? And so on those days, of course, I negotiated prices. Okay, you can't pay me my normal fee, but you can pay me this. Absolutely, I'm going to take it because I had to pay the bills. Now that I've been doing this for a longer time, and I kind of know how it flows. I know there are some lulls in consulting. There's some months that are softer than others. I stock my coins so that I can say, you know, if someone comes in and they try to nickel and dime me, that's not going to work for me. I'm sorry, I'm not the right consultant for you. Whereas before I felt a little bit more desperate and I would take those things. So I think you have to come to who you are in your own time based on your own values and what your pocketbook says. The other thing I want to say is one of the blessings, Carla, of being in our sector is that I think we have every niche covered in terms of our network. We have plan givers, we have alumni relations, we have corporate relations, we have major gifts people, we have people who plan events, right? So one of the nice things about having a niche, which is why I stepped out fundraising and decided I was going to work only with nonprofit boards because I saw a need. And so sometimes you have to look to see where is there a need, right? And so I saw a need. I didn't see a whole lot of Black women in the space of working with nonprofit boards. And I saw an opportunity for me to transfer my skill set from fundraising. Because how many times have we had questions like, what else can we do besides fundraise? We don't want to do this anymore. How can we use the skill sets that we have and transfer it out? So I decided that I was going to use all of the things that I learned as a fundraiser in terms of advocating for mission, telling story, building relationships, to use that to actually to work with nonprofit boards. So Carla, I just wanted to ask you, your gift and niche seems to be major gifts, but you do other things as well. At least you mentioned the annual fund. Tell me about
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I've kind of been over 30 years, I've kind of done it all. I mean, I started out as a development coordinator and have had almost every position in the field. I really enjoy the individual relationships. So my work has tended to be more major gift focused and particularly capital campaign focused. But I just want to throw out another value. So for me, the value that I'm looking for is trust. So the leader of the organization, whoever the executive director or CEO is, that person has got to be someone that we can work together and build trust. I have to understand what that person's goals, priorities are, and then that person has got to trust me to be able to deliver on what it is that we agree in our contract that my work is supposed to be. So building a trust relationship is key for me.
Thank you. All right, let's move on. We have some good juicy questions I want to get to. Lauren. Okay, so the question I have now, and we're going to keep this brief, ladies. What knowledge do you wish you had when you started your firm? And what advice can you offer to women of color who are considering stepping out on their own as a consultant? Just keep it brief, one or two things.
Sure. What I will say, I'll start on the second question. If you are even thinking about it, go ahead and start your paperwork in your respective state. Go through the Secretary of State, figure out what the rules are, pay the fee, even if you don't really know what the business is outright. If you think you have a name or an entity structure, go ahead and start that paperwork so that you have it in your back pocket. I failed to mention that in my first go round, but I had started the paperwork months before I had transitioned out, and then it ended up being the right time and the right thing.
Wanda?
Get a tax accountant. That's
I
all
was
I
going
got.
to say the same thing.
That's all I got. Get
I
somebody
think,
with that
as-
money.
yeah, I don't know what just happened to my lights. Forgive me. It's motion sensor. I've been sitting still. But having a someone who understands the business structure and the tax structure is going to be key. So that is a true key piece of advice. But also have a network. So I have found that with the Fabulous Female Fundraising Group, as Crystal mentioned, just about any area of support that we need, we are able to get that information through someone who is in that network. The consultant lounge that we do, every quarter or every other month has been very helpful for us to be able to talk about pricing structure. And I guess that's another piece of advice. It's like go out there and research what this industry pays and set your fees and your prices on a professional level. Don't try to take the lowest bid because I'm going to tell you, you're going to do more work for a little amount of money. And at the end of the day, you're not going to be satisfied in the work. We have value. We bring value to the industry, to our clients. And so show that and don't be afraid to ask for that.
Well, I would like to share that earlier this year, Carla and I went away on a retreat and we spent a whole day. She graciously agreed to help me with some brainstorming for my business. And we literally had big sticky notes all around the kitchen, going through some things. Who are my main clients? Who signs my contracts? Who are my competitors? What are my values? Who is it that I'm trying to appeal to? What is my brand? Is my brand strong? Do people respond to my brand, right? And so we literally worked that whole Saturday. She helped me work through some of these things that I was thinking about. Where do I see my business in 5 years? Do I want to scale? Do I just want to be a one-person shop? Who are my clients? How important is me to have good, trusting relationships with them? So we just went through a whole one day. So I suggest that if you are thinking about stepping out on your own, find a friend, find a colleague, someone who will sit down with you and brainstorm all of these things. What's the name of your business? Does that name have value? Does that resonate with people? How will you market it? Will you be able to have a website? How interactive do you want to be? Are you going to blog? What are the things that's going to do that's going to make you stand out? So I'm just saying, these are the things that I know now after having been in business for years. If I had known it back then, I would have sat down and done all that, but I kind of did it backwards. But my recommendation to you is if you're thinking about stepping out on your own, do your homework, figure out who you are, who would be interested in the service that you're trying to offer, right? Who would be willing to pay the prices that you want to charge? So all of those are the things that I would suggest that I know now that I wish I knew then. Okay, let's move forward. Next. Okay, so let's get into the juicy part. Let's talk about race and gender. That's why we're here, right? So I want to ask this question. Carla, do you feel that race and gender, you mentioned it earlier, has impacted your success? Has it helped you? Has it hurt you? And how can race and gender be used as a benefit?
So, I am an African-American woman and I'm working in a field, as I said, that has typically been white dominated and white male dominated. Now it is changing quite a bit, and I've seen it change over the years, which is a good things. But yes, race has impacted me, and early on or working in a career, I did feel like I was put in a box and limited on what I could do, no matter whether or not I was achieving outcomes and goals and expectations or not. I would also give ideas and recommendations that when I set them in the room, they were not heard or validated, but someone else could say the exact same thing or repeat a conversation they had with me, and it was validated. It was a great career. So those things have happened to me. I will tell you, though, since being a consultant, that has not been my experience. I show up in the room and I'm very much accepted and embraced. And organizations now are looking at how do they attract more people of color to their organizations to work there as employees, as board members, and also donors. And so we're very strategic in those conversations. We evaluate kind of what has been done, what may be limiting them from being able to attract diverse donors or employees, and we work together on coming up with a plan to overcome those barriers. So it has been, as a consultant, it's been wonderful. As an employee, it really hurt. It was hard.
Lauren, I'm gonna pop on it to you. I mean, do you ever feel tokenized? Do you like leverage the fact that you're a woman of color? What do you say?
Yeah, for sure. Very similar to Carla. When I was in a traditional work environment, a 9 to 5, I very much had deep experiences with microaggressions and having my expertise questioned and my decision making, down to when we were in the pandemic, like the quality of my background being remarked on, which was annoying, which was beyond annoying. And as a consultant, no, I do not have those issues anymore because the alignment of my values with the choices that we make for the business allow for a lot of that riffraff really not to even filter in. So it has been an incredible blessing and a journey, just like how much healing work has been provided through being a consultant, that I do not have to stress myself out consciously and unconsciously with how I show up in a professional environment. I am professional. I have the credentials and the expertise to do this work. And I think that that shows up even more so now as a consultant because I'm able to live in it wholeheartedly and truthfully.
Thank you. Carla, like you, I worked at a consulting firm for a while, and I did feel tokenized because they didn't have strong relationships with nonprofits that were led by people of color. And although me and my fellow consultants had the same fundraising goals in terms of the amount of money we brought into the firm, I was somehow assigned to all of the Black consultants. And so, my phone would ring and it would be, Crystal, Black Mamas Matter on line 3, Crystal, the National Black MBA on line 1, Crystal, 100 Black Men of Atlanta on line 6. Now that was fine. I didn't mind working with Black consultants, but often some of those nonprofits didn't have the same budgets as some of the other clients that we were courting. And so they could not afford to pay the fees that we were charging. And so therefore the income that I was bringing in was not the same as the income of the folks who was getting like, the Atlanta Zoo and the symphony, right? Folks who can come in and pay high costs, and they would not adjust my fundraising goal. And so I was held to the same standard as my colleagues. And yet I rarely got any clients that were not clients of color. And so I felt tokenized, and I felt that it was not fair that I was being measured with the same fundraising goals as my clients. And so I think it can work both ways. And clearly I had to leave up out of there because I was going to kill somebody. But that was my experience, and that was when I felt tokenized. Now, as a consultant now, I get to choose, like you guys, I get to choose my clients, and I immediately let them know who I am. I tell them I'm a New Yorker, I'm bold, I'm pointed, but not pointy. I'm not going to fluff it up for you. You're going to have to deal with your own issues about race before you hire me. Like, this is where we are. If you want to work with me, this is who I am. These are my values. This is who I am. And so I let them know coming in who I am. And then they can decide whether or not they're ready to work with me. I could not do that working in a 9-to-5 gig. So there's some freedom now in knowing who you are, who you want to work with, and letting them know who you are coming through the door. Wanda, did you want to add anything about this?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is, I deal with microaggressions or kind of sometimes underestimating my ability or questioning some of the things that I present to clients. And when it happens, it doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, I always remind myself that this is a termed contract. And I don't have to tolerate this.
Right.
I can tolerate it as long as I want, and I can address it how I want to address it, and then I move on. And so I have learned to kind of take that approach when I get in situations where sometimes, I had a staff member at an organization that had literally been in fundraising less than a year and was questioning standard operating procedures. And I thought, I just knew in that moment, this is because I'm a Black woman. Like they're not used to seeing a Black woman with this type of knowledge. They're not used to seeing them in this type of position. And I'm not here to do the work to help you to get there. But it just, I think in some ways it softens it a little bit, because when you're an employee, you feel trapped. And that's how I felt a lot of my career. And so, but yeah, I would just say, I'm always like, this is just termed.
Yeah,
And-
yeah.
and-
And sometimes you have to remind them. I've had to remind a client, I just want to remind you that I am a consultant. I am not an employee.
And, having that contract that spells out exactly what your work is and what you're there to do, it is just so helpful. So I just do not get caught up in all of the other things that are going on and that will take me away from being able to produce whatever it is that I'm
Yeah.
contracted to do.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, and I have learned as, as a single mom, as a sole source of income in my family to stand my ground on my terms for payment, right? And so in the beginning, they would tell me, oh, well, you'd have to wait 30 days after the consultant, the assignment is over and send in an invoice, and then we'll have you be reimbursed. No. You're going to have to pay me up front at the signing of the contract.
Absolutely.
Before
That's
I
one thing
start
not
your-
to play with.
Yes.
Never, never, never. Have that
Yes.
conversation early. Have that conversation early. And if you get into one of those discovery calls, which we host, we ask it multiple ways until we get an answer, because
Yep.
otherwise we cannot prescribe or put any type of proposal together to even begin to try and source what your needs are. No, we have that conversation very early.
Yeah,
Very.
because while you're waiting for it to be reimbursed, Wanda in the finance department is on vacation, right? And they need her signature before they can move forward. So your contract and your invoice is sitting on Wanda's desk. She's in the Bahamas. You sitting home eating peanut butter and jelly, and you're like, this don't make no daggone sense.
And we've implemented late fees now in just in case, because we've communicated a couple of different times. Our system, QuickBooks, will charge you a late fee if it's after 3 days.
I'm
Yeah.
feeling that all day long. And then also charging people for proposals. People, can you send me a proposal? You spend 2 or 3 hours on a proposal trying to make it right. You're making sure their mission is all included and the branding is all there. And then you send a proposal and either you don't hear from them, they just don't even respond, they ghost you, or they just, oh, we went with another consultant. And you're like, I just spent 3 hours on this daggone proposal. So knowing now that if you want a proposal, I'm going to have to charge you for that. And the amount that's in this proposal is only good for a certain amount of time. You can't come to me next year and think that the price of this assignment is going to be the same as it was the year before. Inflation has happened. Eggs are more expensive now. I'm sorry, right? And so you have to be clear about all of those things now. And these are things that you just learn from, and you feel more confident as you're doing the work. In the beginning, you might be a little squirrely. You're not really sure. But once you start doing this work and you realize you've been burned a few times, you know what's important to you and you go in knowing. Okay, let's move forward. Inclusion and trust. Carla, in what ways have you or your firm represented integrated inclusion into your practices, and how do you build a culture of trust, candor, and respect into client interactions?
That is a huge mouthful, Crystal. So the firm that I am affiliated with, I am a senior consultant. So above me, we have partners. I am one of, I believe, 3 people of color who are senior consultants. And I think our firm has about 40 employees. We have regular, almost quarterly business meetings where we come to the senior consultants and partners come together and talk about the business. Clients that we are pitching for, clients that we may have pitched for, didn't get, we kind of assess that. And so we all bring our feedback and ideas to the table. And so that is how I am heard and I am a part of the decision-making process there. So I feel very, very much included. As far as my clients, and I guess this goes back to the last conversation, we kind of pick and choose our clients. And so we, almost kind of know the culture of the organization before signing on that contract. So if there's something about that client that I don't feel quite right, like I'm not going to be valued, like I'm not going to be brought fully accepted into the organization, that's probably a contract that I'm going to pass on. So for the people that I am currently working with, that conversation has already been established up front, that we have a trusting relationship, that I am being sought after because you want the skills, the experience that I bring to the table as it relates to fundraising. And we're going to work together. So usually there is a weekly or bi-weekly call with the CEO. I participate. I know the board members, the board chair in particular. I know all of the leadership team. And so there is good, solid conversations about the business practice, and the processes. And if I have a recommendation for how to address an issue, particularly as it relates to race or fundraising, then I'm able to share that with leadership. So far, it has been working, but I have to say it's working because the clients that I'm working with are ready to move to this next level.
Thank you so much. I'm going to popcorn it to you, Lauren.
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
you build inclusion into your practices?
For sure. For the clients that we serve, it really means taking the time to center the voices and the experiences that the clients are hoping to serve. So that might mean a deep listening session where we are really getting to what the priorities are, and so that we can create grounded strategies that are rooted in their goals and their vision. At the firm level, we have a litany of meetings where everyone is thinking through what ways we can improve on a process. And so that too requires deep listening and making sure everyone feels heard and valued, and also implementing some great idea, usually to either increase efficiency for our operations, reduce operating expenses, get everybody's pockets just a little bit more full, and making sure we do that while we deliver really good client work. So in the client work, again, we're echoing real lived experiences because we are a team of mostly Black professionals. And so it's really great that the client gets to see people that look like them, and there's that unspoken knowledge around lived experiences there. But at the firm level, everybody's voice is heard.
Thank you. Wanda, did you want to add anything?
No, I think the communication piece is really important. The deep listening is really important with your client. And I also think when decisions are being made, and typically a consultant is dealing with the ED if there's no DD there. I think questioning who also should be in the room, who also might have a different perspective. Sometimes people run organizations and they don't, then it's not very collaborative, and collaboration is a big value for me.
Mhm.
And so I try to make sure that the diverse voices, and I'm typically working in diverse organizations, but even within their functions is showing up at the table. So it's a decision that has buy-in
Thank
and
you.
ownership. Yeah.
Let's move to the next slide. Thank you, Lauren. Uncomfortable conversations. Have you had any uncomfortable conversations with a client or a potential client because of microaggressions or inappropriate comments or outright racist behavior towards you or the clients that they serve? And if so, how have you handled it?
Yeah, I had a situation. It's not necessarily, it didn't start off racist. So in my email signature, I have she, her, right? It's me being in solidarity with people who are non-binary. And I was joining on to work on a special feasibility study with a client, and their IT person was setting up my emails. And so he got an email from me from my personal and made the commented on the she, her, and I just explained what it is. And then it just went off the rails. He started talking about race and Trump. I mean, I was reading like, how did this go from a comment on an email signature? And so I hadn't even started, like I literally hadn't started on the project. So I had to reach out to the head of the firm, talk to him, show the emails. And I thought, is this really where I want to be working right now? Is this really client? But the consultants end up being wonderful, but it was just that particular, and you think, so you're not immune to this type of behavior, but that's pretty much all I've experienced in terms of having those uncomfortable conversations. I typically work with organizations that are diverse and have a commitment to equity. But yeah, that was a hard conversation, I think, just to bring up, because I could have let it just go by, but I just thought, well, he has access to my emails, and I don't know, it just felt very uncomfortable, but I did acknowledge it, and I don't think they really dealt with it. I think they didn't know how to deal with it. They spoke to him, but it didn't feel resolved to me.
Right.
But I moved on.
I remember one time I was speaking with a client and we were talking about me traveling to the meeting. And they wanted me to pay for my travel upfront and be reimbursed, to which I said, I don't do that. This is business that's on your organization. If you want me to travel to you, then you'll have to take care of my travel in advance. You have credit cards. I'm not gonna, clog up my credit card waiting for you to reimburse me. And they pushed back and said, well, that's not our policy. And one of the board members who was in on that official meeting typed in the chat, don't worry, if you can't pay for this, or if you can't pay for this, or if you're challenged doing this, just use my credit card number, and put her credit card number in the chat with her expiration date and everything, so that everybody who was in the call could see it. So I shut that call down, and I was like, this is not going to happen. You're not going to try to shame me in front of all these people. So yeah, I mean, things like that happen. And so that was definitely a microaggression that I had to address. And I told them that if we were going to continue together, first of all, I didn't want to have any dealings with that board member, because that was not going to be good for her. But they had to understand who I was. And so there are some times where people will test you and they'll say and do things, and just, I guess, because they think you don't have any power, and that you're just going to take it, and you just kind of have to stand up for yourself. Does anybody else have any examples of any uncomfortable conversations that you've had?
So I would like to comment, because the client that I am supporting right now, and actually in their space, is located in Cartersville, Georgia, which is heart of Republican country. So there have been chances where, I need to show up on behalf of the organization to talk about the organization. So I have been put in those positions, but I show up as a professional. I represent the organization well. And typically, I'm able to identify those supporters that the organization has in the room. And so we're working through just kind of changing and showing up in a community that typically, hasn't seen a lot of, or haven't been as open to people of diversity. So that's where I'm sitting right now. And I feel very safe, and in a building that we just did a capital campaign for and raised the money we need and built it. So it's going okay. I'm okay.
All right. Thank you, Carla. Thank you for sharing. Okay, let's move on to our next slide. I want to talk about relationships with white consultants. And so here are my questions. As a small business, have you competed with white consultants that may have larger resources or connections? If so, has there been deference shown to white consultants when working with a client? And do you have any suggestions on working with other consultants who have lived different experiences? So it's a loaded question.
I'd like to take the third point. So I have worked with consultants who are not Black. And most of them, I had a prior relationship with them, or we had some kind of interaction, or there was a referral that I felt like the person who was referring me knows me fairly well. I think you have to be mindful of what dynamics can play out in these relationships and collaborations. I've had one that didn't go the way that I really wanted it to go. And so I know we'll never work with that person again. But I think in part of that, I was earlier in consulting. And so there probably were things that questions I wasn't asking myself about this person and how they would handle things. But I think you do have to be mindful of the fact that you don't want what are the roles and responsibilities? What person will take the lead on certain things? Who will be the point person? How do we respect each other in communications? I mean, the folks that I subcontract work, so I typically take on very few assignments. They pay more, so I don't have to do a lot, and that's kind of the model I have. But when I do subcontract work, it's typically with Black women. And that has worked for me. There's a real understanding and respect. There are other people that I would be interested in, but we need to do a trial run to see how that plays out. Because sometimes the unconscious bias is very real. And people could have very good intentions and still undermine you, do all those things that you were battling with in the office. And so that's been my experience. I've worked with consultants that have been very supportive, that have not been Black. But yeah, I think you have to be really careful, especially someone like me who is very, very sensitive about being tokenized. And so I think you just have to have the right questions you're asking and feel a really strong level of trust with that person, so it doesn't cause you frustration.
Lauren, what about you? Have you done any work with any white consultants?
Yeah, I'll echo a lot of what Wanda said. I think I know for sure I've competed against other white consultants and who had larger resources and connections for sure. I think the responsibility for the abundance of white consultants that are out there is that they have a responsibility really to seek out and actively work with us. And that might look like a couple of different things. It might look like amplifying our skills. It might look like amplifying our areas of focus, our voices, our expertise in a lot of different ways, deferring to our services when they cannot do it and maybe not attempting to try that. I think that's what real advocacy and inclusion might look like from somebody who claims that they are an accomplice now instead of an ally. I know that's the new word. Because there's enough out here for everybody. And so I would really put that responsibility on a lot of the white consultants of non-color, I should say, who are out here.
Yeah, I think it's important to build trust in the consulting community because we don't work in a bubble, and we do want to have relationships with other consultants. And as you guys know, I have done some work with some of you, and Carla and I have worked on with clients together. And that's one of the nice things about F3 is that because of the skill sets we have in our network, we can collaborate when we have projects. But I have had white consultants reach out to me and say, I have this client, but I think you would be better suited to serve this client because of your lived experience, because of your background. And so I'm going to defer to you. And the only way that you're going to get people to do that is by building trust with them. And so my relationships with my fellow consultants, Black and white, has been good. And I'm intentional about keeping those relationships strong. And that means that I'm also going to refer you out. So, Wanda, I've reached out to a couple of people who had expressed interest in fundraising consultants, and I've mentioned your name a couple of times. And that's what that advocacy piece is really important, so that people are speaking your name when you're not in the room. And that's really what you really want to have, whether the person is white or Black. So thank you. Carla, did you want to say anything about this? Or are you good?
I really think you covered it very well. So, I am fortunate to work with a team of consultants, and the relationship is working well. And they did seek me out because they saw talent in a way that I could help strengthen the firm. And fortunately, it is working well.
Yeah, someone mentioned the conversation being just about Black and white, and so I'm sorry about that because that's what we always focus in on. But I have relationships with consultants who are one who is Indian, one who is Asian, and I think also building relationships outside of the Black-white community is also important. So, and these days we want to make sure that our clients are being represented by people who look like them, whether they're Black or Asian or Hispanic or Indian or Muslim or whatever it is, LGBTQ. So if you know of a consultant who would be better suited to serve a client, it would be probably in their best interest if you referred them out, and it'll come back to you. So don't think of it as losing money. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Thank you for whoever had that question. So I wanted to share that in the consultant lounge with F3, we meet quarterly. We share wins. We discuss our clients and what new client acquisition looks like. We discuss time management. We collaborate. We refer one another. We discuss pricing. We discuss taxes. We discuss trends, and we encourage one another during hard times. And so, if you're a consultant or thinking about being a consultant, find your tribe of other consultants who can support you in this way. It's really important to have a crew who you can call on, who understands some of the challenges that you're experiencing day to day as a consultant. It is different. It's different than working in a 9 to 5 gig. And there are some days where, your confidence might be low. You might feel like, man, I just really bombed on that last assignment, or I'm not sure if I want to take on this new client. And having someone who you can reach out to, I think, is really, really important. And so I'm going to open up to my panel. How has being an F3 and being a consultant helped you being in this network?
I'll kick it off. I sought out F3. I had moved from Cincinnati to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I'm based now. And I knew in the transition of taking my business from one locale to another that there would be some attrition because, Midwestern cities tend to be really insular, very, very, very communal. And I think that that's fine. But what I knew to be true was that once I left that Ohio state line, that it was done for a lot of it. So I wanted to take that as an opportunity to build and scale nationally. And that is what we did with Architect. And I'm just so grateful for how that happened. And F3 was a really big component of that. Crystal, you are a dynamo. You are an amazing person. I'm so grateful that our paths have aligned and we got to meet in real life just over a month ago.
Yes.
Because this is an ecosystem that I have truly cherished. I bring your name up all the time because I'm meeting and trying to find different people across the country who are, I think I might want to do this, Lauren. Wouldn't you say yes? And I'm like, all right, well, this is one step. And then here's a great resource for you. So F3 has been amazing because of all the things on this list, but all the things that are not on this list. And then the other women who aren't on this call, but just are in the locale regionally. It's been fantastic. It's been fantastic group. And I'm so glad that I sought it out.
I'm thankful for you, Lauren. Wanda, tell us how F3 has impacted you in terms of being a consultant.
Yeah, I mean, I started my business and then I think I joined F3. It wasn't too much long after. So it's so much of my development as an entrepreneur, as thinking about my business as a woman, has been very much connected into F3 experience. And the consultant lounge has just been really a godsend to be able to tap into wonderful, brilliant women every quarter, how often we do it, especially when I was traveling abroad, which I dealt with a lot of isolation a lot of times. And so it was just great to have this because it's not just about kind of the technical piece of it, which we did a lot of sharing, which I thought was very helpful. And but also knowing that I had a group of women that were literally going through the same experiences that I was all over the country. And that was just really it brought so much value to be a part of it. And then the mentoring relationships that have come out of the friendships. I mean, so much has come out of this experience, an opportunity to speak to everyone here that's in attendance today. So I think it's just multiplied in terms of our annual membership. I feel like I get so much more out of just being connected to so many women who are just doing really good work and want to help other people live better lives and do this work whole. And I think that just has been a real blessing.
Thank you. Carla, did you want to add anything?
I'm going to echo everything that Lauren and Wanda has said. Crystal, I kind of been one of the first to join you. I think I was part of those pre-F3 days where we were meeting for lunch. But what I'm really proud of is how the group has evolved to become a safe place for women to learn from one another, to champion one another, and to support one another. So I do feel like there is a purpose and there's a need because being in this field, it is hard work. And we want to see the next generation of fundraisers really look like the people who are being served by these organizations. So I feel that the work that we're doing is leading in that direction. So thank you for getting us started. And I'm excited about the future.
I am too. And I want to shout out, I can't see everybody who's with us today, but I did see Lisa Scott made a comment. So I want to shout out all my F3 members who are here today to support us and let you know that we might not be able to see you, but we feel you and we love you and we're glad that you're part of our network. And so I want to open it now to Yvonne. I think I just want to open it up to questions. I think this might have been our last slide. Here's some contact information if you want to get in touch with any of us. My firm is The Board Pro, so you can reach me at theboardpro.com. Carla is at Columns Fundraising and at columnsfundraising.com. Lauren is at architectYourAmbition.com, and Wanda is at WandaScottAssociates.com. And so if you have any questions for us or if you need to hire us, we're happy to chat with you about your needs. And so I want to open it up to see if there are any questions. Yvonne, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Plenty of questions, and thank you for the F3 takeover. I've just been sitting here sipping my tea. But no, thank you. I appreciate it. We're gonna have to do this more than once a year. But so the first thing is I'll just address that people. We've gotten the question: are you looking for any more sisters in F3? So how would someone handle wanting to be a part of the group?
Yeah, we are still currently accepting memberships. We do cap at 75, and I think we have about 15 spots open. So if you are interested, certainly go to our website at fabfemalefundraisers.org. But we are staying intentionally small because we want our group to remain intimate. And I want to remember everybody's birthday. And if it's 5,000 people, I can't remember. So,
and she does remember everyone's birthday.
Everybody's birthday.
Okay, so yeah, let's not break Crystal's brain. That's a lot. Okay, so Stacy had the question, what are resources to use for researching fee structures? Like, do you have any websites or anything you can throw in chat, or how do you all do that? And I'll just pass it to Lauren real quick.
Oh, resources. No, I looked at graphic designers. I looked at fundraising consultants. I looked at, I think one other, comms consultants. That's what it was. And I came up with some sort of amalgamation of what that might be. And then I had another trusted advisor look at it. And he basically told me that I needed to triple it because it wasn't enough. And the rationale for why he told me to triple it, shout out to Ernie, is because you have to pay yourself, your business needs revenue, Zoom, and then you have to pay your taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, that's genius. And
right.
So
and then you got benefits on top of that. You know, as
all
an
of that
employee,
stuff.
you would have been
Health,
given that.
all
So
that.
yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
can't be shy about it. I don't know of any website that can help you do this, but just like when you're job searching, you have to do your research to see what's out there, to see what is being paid, what is competitive. And then you have to price yourself based on the value that you feel that you bring to that organization.
Gotcha.
And Yvonne, I have learned over the years that I incorporate things like, if I have to, board my dog, right? If I'm traveling and I'm going to be gone 3 days and I got to board my dog, that's going to be an extra $300. If I got to find a babysitter for my son, that's going to be. So you have to think about all the other things too, the cost of you traveling, particularly if you're doing something where you're going to have to hire someone else. I know sometimes when I do a board search, I use a prospect researching firm who will help me find the right board members. I have to pay them. So I incorporate all those things in my prices, but I also look at the size of the organization, the budget of the organization. If it's a small organization, grassroots, either I'm not going to take that assignment or I'm just going to say, I know this time I'm going to take a hit, but I want to help these people. So I think you have to decide what's right for you.
Can I add really quickly something
Yes.
specifically what the rates are in terms of, because I think this was helpful for me, because when I initially tried to get a sense of it, people were they held those numbers close to their chest.
Oh,
So I am located in the Bay Area. And people's rates start at about 150. I charge a lot more than that. Based on, and I do development consulting work and I do interim work. And so all of that, my rate considers everything. It considers the insurance I pay, which is astronomical. It considers taxes, all of that. And, I know people who are making up to $500 an hour for consulting. Somewhere around 300 or so is where I typically land, but sometimes I'm a lot less than that, depending on the project, depending on the client, and depending on how much I just really want to work with these folks. And so there's flexibility, but I think sometimes we need to just give a guideline for folks, because if you think 75 is a lot and 75 is a lot to you, but you don't realize that the other person sitting next to you is making 250. And so
Right.
we just, there's the state of California, we do transparency around salaries. And I just think as a consultant, I'm very transparent with other folks. So they get a sense, and I'm in California, it's a little different, but they get a sense of what people are making and charging and how they do a pay structure. You can do hourly or you can do a project pay structure, but I still add in, I'm always thinking about those administrative costs. So I just wanted to add that in so people have like a hard number
Yeah.
of the work that I'm doing in the place that I'm doing it in.
Yes,
Thank
I will
you.
offer up one more thing I want to offer
Good.
up. The book Profit First does a really great job of breaking down what the things you should be spending your money on and how to calculate revenue will be after you figure out your pricing structure. You can read the book, it's available on Audible. You can also search on YouTube for really short synopses, and it will help guide you through what you need to be thinking through for percentages of taxes, operating expenses, revenue, the profit, like all of that stuff are terrific resources to help you figure out exactly how you should price your services. And it's been amazing.
Thank you. Please put it in the chat if you have a moment. Profit First. I know I probably need to look. I like this question. An anonymous attendee asked, if you're introverted and have a limited network, what would you suggest can be done to obtain clients for your business? And I'll go to Wanda first.
Well, I'm an introvert. Most people don't realize that.
Oh,
Very much so. Or ambivert, that's what they call me. One of the things, I didn't realize I had the network I had. So one, don't underestimate your network. Because I'm introverted. And I thought, well, I don't go to all the stuff and people aren't always, and trust me, my business is 99.9% referral. So it's network-based. Second, use LinkedIn. Use LinkedIn, reach out to people who are doing the work you want to do, reach out to organizations that you would want to work for, and ask them, can you have a 30-minute conversation? You will be surprised at how big my network has gotten through this business by doing that. So those are easy resources. I'm sure the other ladies have other things, but I'm an introvert. I do not like long periods of time with a lot of people. It is exhausting, but I can still do this work, but you do it in a way that feeds you as well. But yeah, you definitely don't underestimate your network, but then, tap into ones that are already there that you got, that you could do. And people are very kind and gracious and will.
LinkedIn is a very powerful tool and
Yeah.
it is a good place. And so for me and my network, I went back, looked at places that I had worked, looked at who was serving on the board, who I developed a good relationship with, looked at some of the donors that I had built very strong relationships with. And my calls were all one-on-one. So it wasn't like I was in large group settings trying to network and build a base and get my name out there. It truly was one-on-one conversation that I had to get my name out and let people know that I was available for work and taking clients.
Wonderful. Anything else, Lauren, Crystal?
Say yes to speaking engagements wherever you can. These things really terrify me. I know you can't really tell, but they do, which is one of the reasons why I say yes, because one day they won't.
Gotcha.
Well, as y'all know, I'm not an introvert.
Right.
But I just think being out there and being visible, and that means speaking engagements, being at the conferences, exchanging business cards, talking to people. You do have to just kind of have to get out and let people see that you're in the room.
Okay, great. Someone asked about grant writing services. I'm going to suggest that they go to your websites and get that information since we only have a limited amount of time. Do you think it was important, this is a question from Carol, to have like those 20 plus years working for someone else before you went out on your own? Or can people kind of just put up a shingle when they're right as they're learning? And this might be sort of an opinion question, but I'll start with Carla. What do you think?
So experience is important. There fundraising is both well, not an art, it's not a science. It really is about being able to think through situations, see opportunity. So you have to have learn from being in various situations, talking with certain donors, being a part of capital, being a part of any type of campaign in order to be able to give your client the best advice. There are books out there that you can read, but nothing really goes according to the textbooks. So I don't know that you have to have 20 plus years of experience, but feeling confident and feeling like you're a master of your trade is important.
Thank you. Crystal, did you want to add something? I see you all nodding.
Yeah, no, I think, you're like Carl said, maybe not 20, but 10.
At least.
You really have to go through some stuff and to really kind of understand what you know, how you're going to use what you know, and how you're going to fulfill needs that are out in the sector. So I just think that there's just something to having, how your mama said, just keep living. There's something to just keep living. You're going to learn some stuff along the way. So I do think you need to get your head knocked around just a little bit, have some wins, have some losses, understand the sector before you can get out there and say that you want to do this. So
thank you. That's important, I think. John was curious of the percentage of your clients, and this might be for all of you, that are Black-led organizations versus other. Does anyone kind of have that number offhand? And I'll start with Wanda.
Yeah, I would say about 90% of my clients are Black-led.
Okay.
Yeah,
Lauren, how about you?
Same, same. And I really also segment by issue area. So we do a lot of reproductive justice work, education justice work, and that just happens to be a lot Black-led, female-led too, but sometimes it's not.
I would have to say mine is about 50-50.
Okay.
And so right now I have one client that has pretty much bought out all my time, and it is not a Black female.
Gotcha. And Crystal, how
I
about
would
for
say
you?
50-50.
50-50.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm guessing all that's intentional, so I gotcha. This is so hard because there's so many good questions, but we have to go. So I think networking resources, you all have a group, but are there other resources that you know of for people who are, now excited and know that they want to do this, but they understand that you need sort of a support and network? Any suggestions? And I'll just start with Carla.
Yeah, actually, one of our slides, Crystal, I thought had listed about 6 different groups that we are aware of that is doing offer different things to people who are particularly people of color that are in this profession. Yeah, that one.
Perfect.
So-
And I'll just reiterate for the audience that you will get these slides. So you will have that slide and that resource. Thank you so much. I think I just have to say thank you because it's almost over and I can't keep y'all forever. But we appreciate this conversation. Very, you'll see all the shout outs in the chat saying, thank you for the candid conversation. Thank you for the real conversation. Very inspiring. I feel like I'm just going to leave my job now and go. No, I'm not, but I do,
Don't do
I
that.
do appreciate it. Right. But I do appreciate it because like one of you said, you never get like that hard number and you don't get I was driving Uber. It just seems either it seems really easy or it seems really hard. So I'm getting a good sense of, it is what it is, right? And you figure it out I think it's interesting that it came about in the pandemic because a lot of people made hard choices at that time. It almost forced people to make some, take some risk. But thank you so much for being here, Lauren, Carla, Crystal, Wanda. We will definitely have you back in some capacity at some point. And I just want to thank the audience for being here with us. And remember, you will get these slides and you will get the recording in about 48 hours. And I'll just let you all say goodbye as well.
Thank you for having us, Yvonne. I really appreciate it.
It was
Thank
course,
wonderful.
always,
you.
always.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, go be fabulous, y'all.
Bye-bye.
That's what we do.
That's what you
See you
do.
later.
Bye-bye.
Be well, everybody.